Alexa Eala has a new enemy. Women's tennis won't be the same. Alexa Eala has a new enemy, and it didn't start with words. It started with a look. Nobody expected this season to turn personal. A rising star, a historic breakthrough, and suddenly, tension at the net. Cheers turned into accusations, applause turned into arguments, and one match changed how the tennis world looks at Alexa Eala forever. Stay with this story, because this isn't just about tennis anymore. Alexa Eala's story was never supposed to look like this. Not from where she came from, not from where women's tennis usually looks for its next star. A Filipina teenager, trained far from the traditional powerhouses of the sport, carrying the weight of an entire nation that had never seen itself reflected on tennis's biggest stages. When Eala stepped onto professional courts, she wasn't just another prospect, she was history waiting to happen. From her junior Grand Slam success to her steady climb through the WTA rankings, every win felt louder than normal. Every match drew more attention. Not because she was flashy, but because she was fearless. She didn't shrink against higher-ranked opponents. She didn't play respectful tennis. She played to win. Her breakthrough moments sent shockwaves. Upsets against established names, matches where she refused to panic, where she fought from behind, where she absorbed pressure and redirected it like she had been here before. And suddenly, fans weren't just watching, they were believing. The Philippines rallied behind her in a way rarely seen in tennis. Flags in the stands, loud chants, emotional reactions, pride spilling over onto the court. For many, she wasn't just Alexa Eala anymore. She was their player. But with attention comes scrutiny. Opponents noticed the crowds. Umpires noticed the energy. Analysts started asking questions. Was this passion or pressure? Support or interference? Eala stayed quiet, calm in interviews, focused on her game. She talked about growth, about learning, about staying grounded. But the higher she climbed, the closer she came to players who weren't ready to welcome her. And that's when the atmosphere changed, because when you stop being a surprise, you start becoming a threat. And threats don't make friends. What happens when the underdog stops asking for permission and starts demanding respect? It only took one match, one night, one comeback, one moment where tension boiled over and spilled into the open. The match itself was brutal, long rallies, tight margins, momentum swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Eala found herself on the edge, down, exhausted, staring at what looked like the end of her run. But she didn't break. Point by point, she clawed back, refusing to rush, refusing to fold. The crowd grew louder with every game she stole. The pressure shifted, not just on the scoreboard, but emotionally. Her opponent felt it. Disputed calls, frustrated gestures, conversations with the umpire that stretched longer than usual. The match slowed, the tension thickened, and when Eala completed the comeback, the celebration wasn't explosive, it was defiant. The handshake told the rest of the story. No smile, no warmth, barely eye contact. Moments later, frustration poured out. Complaints about the crowd, about distractions, about fairness. Words that didn't directly name Eala, but didn't need to. Fans picked it up instantly. Was this just post-match emotion? Or was this the birth of something darker? Eala, when asked, didn't escalate. She spoke about focus, about staying present, about respecting the game. But silence doesn't always cool a fire. Sometimes it feeds it, because what wasn't said became louder than what was. The tennis world split down the middle. Some said the opponent cracked under pressure. Others said the environment crossed a line, and a new narrative took shape overnight. Alexa Eala wasn't just winning matches anymore. She was changing the room. When victory feels personal, does rivalry become inevitable? The reaction didn't stay on the court. It exploded online. Clips circulated, screenshots dissected, lip readers slowed footage frame by frame. Fans debated tone, intent, and sportsmanship. Was Eala too animated? Was the crowd too loud? Was the opponent too bitter? Supporters defended Eala fiercely. They saw a young woman standing her ground in a sport that often polices emotion, especially from players who don't fit the traditional mold. Critics pushed back. Tennis, they argued, has unwritten rules. Quiet points, respectful silence, neutral crowds. And Eala's matches were starting to feel different. Too different. Pundits weighed in. Some praised her mental toughness, others warned that the spotlight could turn unforgiving fast. One former player commented that being loved by fans can be just as dangerous as being hated by opponents. Eala became a lightning rod. Every fist pump was scrutinized, every glance toward the stands interpreted, every reaction replayed. And through it all, her so-called new enemy stayed in the background, but never fully disappeared. Interviews carried subtle jabs, comments hinted at lingering frustration. Nothing overt, nothing explicit, just enough to keep the story alive. Rivalries don't always need trash talk. Sometimes tension speaks for itself, and the WTA locker room noticed. Young players watched closely. Veterans whispered opinions, because this wasn't just about one match. It was about what happens when a new energy enters a space that's been carefully controlled for decades. Is passion being punished, or is the sport protecting itself? With attention came backlash. Losses were no longer just losses. They were framed as reality checks. Wins were questioned. Analysts asked whether crowd energy played too big a role, whether Eala could succeed in hostile environments, whether her mental edge would hold when the cheers faded. She faced tougher draws, colder crowds, opponents who showed no interest in friendliness. Some matches felt sharper, more physical, less forgiving. And still, she kept fighting. But the tone around her had changed. Instead of rising star, the headlines started saying controversial. Instead of inspiring, some said polarizing. Eala responded the only way she knew how, with discipline, with training, with quieter interviews and sharper focus. She spoke about blocking out noise, about learning to channel emotion, about respecting opponents even when respect isn't returned. Yet the shadow of that first conflict lingered. Every time she walked to the net, fans watched closely. Every handshake became a moment of tension. Every interaction carried weight. Because once a rivalry is born, even an unspoken one, it follows you. And the truth is, not everyone wants peace. Some rivalries fuel greatness, others consume it. Can a player control the narrative? Or does the narrative eventually control the player? Strip away the noise and one truth remains. Alexa Eala didn't ask to be controversial. She didn't manufacture drama. She didn't provoke hostility. She competed. She brought emotion into a sport that often demands restraint. She brought national pride into arenas used to neutrality. She brought belief, loud, visible belief. And that made people uncomfortable. Her so-called new enemy isn't just one opponent. It's the resistance to change, the tension between tradition and evolution, between who gets to be expressive and who's expected to stay quiet. Eala continues to grow, to mature, to adjust without erasing herself. She's learning that every step forward brings resistance, especially when you don't look like what people are used to seeing at the top. The rivalry may cool, or it may flare again, but one thing is clear. Women's tennis has shifted, and Alexa Eala is part of that shift. What if this rivalry isn't a problem, but a sign of progress? Rivalries define eras, not because of hatred, but because of contrast. Alexa Eala stands at the center of something bigger than a single match, bigger than a handshake, bigger than online debates. She represents a new wave, a louder wave, a wave that refuses to apologize for wanting more. Whether her new enemy fades or follows her for years, the impact is already here. Young players are watching, fans are invested, and the sport is being forced to ask hard questions about fairness, expression, and identity. Was this just a rivalry, or the beginning of a transformation? Because one thing is certain, Alexa Eala has arrived, and women's tennis won't be the same. Rivalries don't start with words. They start when someone refuses to step aside. If you believe this is just the beginning of Alexa Eala's story and that this tension could define a new era in women's tennis, let your voice be heard. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dive tennis stories, rivalries, and moments the headlines don't explain, because the next chapter might be even louder.